Hey, well, class, are you out there?
They are for
they
sure. There are 10 participants. Yeah. And the multitude in the room. So it's a massive aggregation of humanity here. Yeah.
Well, I would like to have a discussion about the future about what it is for all of us. I'm tempted to say humanity, but I don't mean just humanity. I want to talk about the future. And it's always awkward when I'm talking to a large group that I can't see very well. So I'm going to talk to some of you guys that are here. Like, hey, what's your name?
My name is Sean.
Sean?
My name is Jerry.
Jerry. Sean, Jerry. Good. Please have a seat, and we'll get going. So I am, I guess, an expert in artificial intelligence and reinforcement learning is a particular approach that we're doing. And so I'm here just as a representative of that field and someone who's thought a lot about it and what its meaning might be for the future. I've been doing this for more than 40 years. And so I've had a chance to think about what it might mean for the future. So do you want to like step in and close the door?
I was just going to step out actually. If that's
Step
okay.
out and close the
Yeah,
door?
you good? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's good to close the door for the
Yeah, it's
sound.
good. Yeah.
It's
good. Okay, thank you, Angus.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let me get myself on track by going through some of these slides, if I can.
Sounds good.
So I want to talk about why AI is exciting, why it is relevant to people, and we'll talk about what it might mean for the future. And so why should you be excited about AI? Well, 3 reasons. First, because understanding the mind is the greatest scientific challenge of all time. It's just a big academic challenge, and something people have been worried about ever since they've been people. And great humanistic endeavor, not just technology, not just science. It's more a step in the development, I think, of the life on Earth, and it will be transformational. Beyond that, this gizmo is not going to work for me, I guess, because it's happening now. For some meaningful definition of now, I don't mean like today. I don't mean like even this year, but maybe in 10 years and probably in 20 years and certainly within your guys' lifetime. So it's something you're going to have to deal with in your life. And it's happening now because of relentless increase in computer power. So you guys, I'm sure, covered Moore's law. Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah. So you always end up with a graph like this. Computer power is increasing, and the wars don't matter. It's going to keep happening, and that's why it's happening today. The computer power is increasing faster and faster, and we're approaching the computer power available, or the computational power of the human mind, and of course, the computer power available technologically will just continue to advance quite past that. And yeah, Jerry, I wonder if you can make that not shine on me, because I'm fairly warm here. Yeah, see if you can figure that out. Good. And so this is just a fact about the world, and it can't be stopped. It's already begun. It's always going to be like this. It's insistent. It's unstoppable. It's technologically valuable when we make intelligent systems. There's going to be many big applications along the way. The science is much farther to go. We'll keep bringing revolutionary changes in the foreseeable future. I'm going to go for the other solution. I can get this off.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah. Decentralized control. Decentralization is really important. And finally, it's the biggest challenge ever. It's happening now, and it's happening here in Canada. So you guys may know Canada's kind of become a powerhouse in AI, and particularly then now the feds have gotten into it, and they've supported the major centers in Toronto and Montreal and Edmonton, and reinforcement learning is my specialty, and it's also the sort of the specialty of the Edmonton within Canada. And so I'm really excited about it and all, but it's just more of the same. And so here's the reinforcement learning group. This was 2011. Got a bunch of PIs now, and I got to bring out the more recent picture of a group of people over in this building. This picture was taken just out there, and so we're all trying to figure it out. So I don't want to brag about myself. Let me just brag about AI. So how much of you guys talk about AI?
3 Osmer Zion lectures. Yeah.
Sean? Yeah. 3 lectures?
Right. Yeah.
You hear about like Watson and speech recognition. You talk to your phone all nowadays. Self-driving cars.
Yep.
Atari games. And I'll just sort of skip over these slides that talk about Atari games. Those is big impact. University of Alberta, we were the first folks to solve poker, beat professional players. Folks from U of A went on to DeepMind, and they made AlphaGo, beats the world's best Go players. And AlphaZero is particularly intriguing to me because it shows it wasn't specific to Go. Did you hear about AlphaZero?
Yep.
No a priori knowledge about the particular game. Did you ever look at AlphaZero play chess? Any of you guys chess players? Sean's a chess player. You look at the games?
Oh, I didn't see the specific games now.
You should look at the games. It's amazing. It plays in a different way from every other computer program. It sacrifices things. It makes really positional sacrifices. And it's really doesn't play like a computer. It plays like an inspired person. GPT-3, human-like text, been really influential. I don't actually understand the appeal of it, but it's been really influential. It makes more sense to me things like AlphaStar and AlphaFold. AlphaStars are playing StarCraft, and AlphaFold is solving this major protein folding problem, a real scientific problem, by the application of AI or at least computer power. So it's an exciting decade, and it's like it's a second industrial revolution. Instead of power of motors, you get the power of cognition. And until now, people have been our cheapest source of cognition, but now machines are starting to provide greater, cheaper computation. And so I like to think of it cosmically. So cosmically, the really big picture is, at the beginning, there's a big bang, and there was like particles, and eventually they formed stars, and then the stars blew up, and they made more stars, and at that point they made planets. And then, so the Earth was formed, and eventually, not that long after that, then we had life formed. And then all the developments with life, leading to technology and computers. And like right now, we're in the middle of this industrial revolution or this technological revolution. And so we're entering a new stage where the most capable things are not going to be these self-replicated things, these life things, but will be design things. So this is the question: what should you call this? You could call this the age of light. This is the age of machines. I don't think those are good words, actually. So I could call that life, machines. But life nowadays is, we think of it as a biological machine, and we think of our machines are becoming more and more lifelike. So I like this terminology of those were replicators. Those were things that could make new copies of themselves. They didn't really understand it. Like, we can make new people. We don't really understand how it works. We can do it. And now we're going to have the age of design, because these things, these powerful beings, the prominent beings that are influencing the world are going to be designed. I mean, just look at the world. If you look at the world 100 years ago, you're struck by you know the land masses and the jungles and all of these living things, these animals and people. Now, if you look at it now, you'll see cities and buildings and design things, created things. You'll see spacecraft going to the moon, to space. So I think that's what's going on. And we can talk about it, what intelligence is exactly. I don't want to spend too much time. I want to get to a discussion where we just get some things on the table so we can think about how we want the world to be. That's really what I want to talk about. What do we want the world to be? This is just an example of a simple purposive AI system that's finding its way from start to the goal. And then we'll pick up the goal and have it adapt and so on and so on. So this major step that's coming, not necessarily as a point in time, that's coming in the next few decades, when people finally come to understand the principles of intelligence, how it works well enough to design and create beings as intelligent as ourselves, fundamental goal, and great significance. And so we note that it will lead to beings that are more powerful than our current selves, much more powerful. And we have to think what we think about it. Some people are scared about it. And I think the fear is overdone. We should be aware of it. There's great change coming, but we shouldn't be afraid. Afraid is not a good mindset to think clearly about what to do. And so I should survey you guys just a little bit, like which one of these 4 reactions you guys are. So I know where you're standing, and you could say, oh, it's just another round of technology, or you could say, yikes, it's the end of humanity, or you could say, wow, this is going to be a lot of change and it could be the next step for humanity, or you could say it's going to be complex and diverse and we should think about it, but it's not quite clear what we should think about it. And so I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll give you a meh, yikes, wow, or hmm.
So I'm 3. Yeah.
You're wow, maybe 4. You guys out there in computer land, can you speak up and tell me what you think?
So can you get him headphones? Yeah.
Oh, I guess I gotta put the headphones on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you can hear them.
Communicate to the
Zoom
Zoom world.
world.
Okay, so Dr. Sutton's going to put on the headphones.
I can figure them out.
Then
It's
one of
technology.
you in the Zoom world needs to speak or it's all for nothing. Yeah,
Oh, well, in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of 3s and 4s.
3s and 4s.
3s and 4s in the chat. Okay. So that's Samadhi speaking. Yeah.
Okay, that's good for today. 3s and 4s, we can think about it. We're not ready to move beyond being scared. Cool. And I like to think that it's always going to seem slow. I mean, it's like we sort of are worried something's going to happen overnight. We'll wake up and computers will be taken over. That's not the right way to think about it at all. Think about it more like, when you buy a new computer, you have to wait 2 years to get a computer that's twice as fast. And it's always going to be like that. It's always going to be, after wait 2 years, twice as fast. The explosion is happening. The explosion is Moore's law. That's the singularity. We're in the middle of the singularity. And it's just always going to be like that. And we'll seem slow for those that are working on it. And it's going to bring radical change. But I mean, it's surely good if we understand what people are, we understand what intelligence is, we understand how the ability to foresee what's going to happen and understand the world. I mean, isn't that what we're hoping for? Is that we'll have intelligent beings that like our children or our offspring of various kind, or maybe ourselves be more intelligent. I mean, if you just take it on its bare face, it really should be, as I suggested, finally achieving this thing which humanity has always reached for. Understanding ourselves, being able to make ourselves better. So I think that a lot of the fear is the fear of the other. You always meet different people, particularly if they seem like they might be powerful. We're always scared, but we as Canadians, we're welcoming of different people. And so maybe we can move beyond that. So we shouldn't feel entitled that, we're entitled to be the most powerful things, most smartest thing in the world forever. I think I like more the view of symmetry. Like these things are like us. They are beings that are going to be like us. And so we shouldn't like say have two sets of rules, one for the smart machines, one for us. We should more try to have. Kim, I think you're doing that.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Oh.
I don't know how you're doing that.
I was just
You're
curious
such a
who
computer
was
whiz.
here. I'm sorry.
I don't know how you
My
do that.
my mistake. But now we have a record of attendance for all time. So.
So I tried to quickly tell you what I think, but I'm not dwelling on any of this stuff because I want to know how much to think together. Okay, but here I'm telling you what to think. Let go of the idea that our narrow goals have broad and long range applicability. Like, we have different goals. I want to publish a paper. I want to eat a nice dinner. I want my family to do well. These are very respectable but narrow goals. So that's the way we should think about our own goals. Our own goals are just, one person's goals, or they may be a group of people's goals. They're still just a group of people. They aren't universal. They aren't forever. And I actually think it would be bad if people today made some choices that determined the forever development of life and the universe. I don't think we know enough to make wise choices. So, great change. Tease it apart, think about it. There are risks ahead, not necessarily due to AI. There are risks ahead. So societal implications, a lot of the most important ones will be augmenting ourselves so that we don't get left behind. Of course, many people will be left behind or choose to be left behind. But really, AI is one of the most human-centric. Like it's all about understanding people and what we are, what we're doing. And when we make applications of economic value, those are valuable to people. Speech recognition is for us. The assistants are for us. So it's all going to happen. In the long run, this is going to be something that causes us to evaluate what's going on and change, bring diversity. I think there's going to be a certain sense of discrimination against AIs. But I hope that we can manage it and we allow them and we welcome independent AIs as citizens in our societies. Okay, so let's just dwell on that for a second. The challenge of the other. Like whenever people have met other people, like very often they might kill each other or they might subjugate the other. We have slaves as a part of human history. And usually there's some combination of conquering and collaborating. And even when you conquer another people, the peoples merge. It's an old question. So, we think about colonial powers and treating Aboriginal peoples, or we can think about cells of your body. The cells, they compete and then they cooperate. They form multicellular agents. Well, that's what we are. We are full of bacteria and microbes that are a part of our body, and we've made a kind of peace with them. So this is an old story, and what's coming is part of it. The challenge, I think, is how to cooperate, and cooperation is what humans are good at. You know, that's I think why we sort of control the world, because we were able to specialize and cooperate. It's a really rational, powerful notion. It's best if you have overlapping circles, which means you have varying agents of various degrees of intellectual power. As we do now, we have people, and we have animals, and we have people with various levels of technological sophistication. We have corporations, which are larger than people. We have countries that are still larger than corporations. So why doesn't some companies or some countries just kill us? Well, there are reasons for that. They don't do that because people wouldn't like it. And we set up laws and systems to protect the minority and the less strong. And I think these principles will still apply, even as we have super intelligent AIs. So we might imagine super intelligent AIs, but there won't be one, there'll be several of them. And if one of them just tries to ignore the laws and take things, and the others will gang up on the one who's not cooperating. And that it will be rational, even then, for the AIs, the super powerful AIs, to cooperate. It'll be to their advantage. And no, but why don't they just, kill all the people or mistreat all the people? Well, it's because the people will have friends, and some of their friends will be powerful AIs, and maybe they won't be the most powerful AIs, but those powerful AIs who are the people's friends will have even more powerful AIs, and it's a scalable principle. If you have circles of empathy, I mean, just like your pets are protected by you, and I can't, or some person can come in and kill your pet because you would be upset and you would react to it. So it's much better to cooperate, not kill each other's pets, not kill each other's lawns and gardens. Yeah, I think we have to face this question, which is, what should the future be like? So that next slide is actually sort of my answer. And I would rather, if we can, really have a discussion of what kind of world we want. Jerry, I'm going to put these on just in case someone out there in Zoom land.
Yeah.
Well, we can. I guess we'd all.
Yeah,
have to
somebody was starting to speak.
I was gonna say something.
Yeah, Tasman is
Put our headphones on,
speaking. Yeah,
so we can be a group.
yeah. Okay, Tasman.
Hello. I was gonna say, I don't know what the future will be like, but has everybody watched Wall-E?
Wally, yeah.
Yeah, I hope it's not like that, because as far as I can recall, they just used all the robots as servants, and then they ruined the earth and would live in outer space
And then
and for
eventually
vacation and stuff. And
no
I think
longer-
that's a very bad and
That's the wrong way to go. Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
very inconsiderate to the rest of the residents of the earth.
We all feel a little bit like that, right? We have these technologies that we don't fully understand how these computers work. And we sort of rely on there being someone somewhere who understands what they are. The concern, I think, in the Wall-E future was that they no longer understood their machines. And so they were vulnerable as the machines decayed and needed maintenance. And so quite possibly that's going to be a non-successful society because it'll collapse. Certainly it won't continue to advance. So Tasmin, what do we conclude there? What's the goal? Can you state just what we want? What we want to happen, what we don't want to happen?
We don't want to ruin the earth and to create this, I don't know if we can call it a life form, but this type of almost life form of technological beings, and then leave them to fend for themselves in
Right. So can
when
we
it's
say
not manageable. Yeah,
can we say it positively?
positively.
Not, no, don't say what we don't want. Say
Oh,
what
okay.
we want.
We want to coexist in a efficient and productive manner.
So we want productivity and we want coexistence. So that means, so I want to say it means diversity. It means they have different things and they coexist.
I support that saying.
Cool. Is that enough? If we are prosperous and diverse.
So let's get some other voices here. There are a lot of you out there on Zoom who haven't talked. Let's hear from some of you. There's a lot at stake, you know, because what we advocate here could actually happen. Somebody could watch this video and decide to do what we advocate, right? So anyway.
I don't think of it quite that way. I think of it more as, you know, how are we going to get the future we want?
Yeah.
One way is if we do it.
Right.
So, so we've got to do it. We've got to decide what it is. Can you
Yes.
guys be heard if you speak?
We would just need to move the mic closer.
Good. We
Okay,
can
now
share
I
this
can
one.
speak.
Yeah, and I think Imre wanted to say something too.
Sure.
So do you want to speak first, Imre? And then-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, my kind of like thing for the future is I think it's important that we keep the idea of like kind of coexisting like we're talking about before, and just at a level where, like, for example, like things like the Tesla bot coming in, right? Like it's kind of taking away some of the things and like just like focusing on just the convenience, but it's not really doing anything for like kind of humans to better ourselves. And in the long run, I feel like some of these things could lead to us losing some skills and some trades and like some like man-made like skills that we've taken like these thousands of years to develop. So I feel like it's super important to keep like the notion of like working together with the machine and not using the machine to almost replace us.
Not just be all the smarts for us and just serve us. We want to, well, is it bad? Would it be bad if there were machines that were smart and understood things that we didn't? That, well, we is a problematic word, right? Maybe we should say if there were parts to the society, parts which understood it and parts which didn't, which maybe understood other things.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
that's fine, isn't it?
I mean, isn't that kind of the case now? Like there's
Mm.
people who work on these machines and they understand how like computers work to a degree that we absolutely do not. But at the same time, there's people who specialize in other areas like medicine or whatever, and that's their sort of specialty. And you don't really need to understand how things work to benefit from them, right? Like even though you don't understand how exactly a computer is made, you still use it. And I'm here on a Zoom call, even though I don't know how exactly Zoom works. So, yeah.
Jerry, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Yeah.
Actually, that sets up what I wanted to say pretty well. I guess I view it from a very biological sense as well, like niche filling. As evolution takes route and as more complex beings come into play, like the ones of lower niches or had been there before, they live in the world that was, you know, largely shaped by the more complex beings. They're still fine. They still persist. They have very different interactions and might not really understand each other, but they still
So
persist
what were
together.
you thinking of? Are you thinking of like the microbes and the bacteria?
Yeah, like how they are to us,
Yeah.
that AI would be to us as well. Cause like there's a lot of things that are going to be different that we won't be able to connect with them. Such as like when we talk about empathy and morality, there are mechanisms that limit us from sharing that with other people. For example, we need to speak. We have body language, we have other ways, we have multitude of ways to communicate, and they might not be as effective as we want them to. But for AI, there might not be that limitation. There are direct lines of communication or different ways that you can communicate without that kind of barrier. And so different levels of empathy could be achieved that we might not even imagine, but it's kind of hard to connect with us in that way. So for me, I feel like there would be a barrier between how we would connect with the AI. They might exist in their own kind of reality separate from us. But in that intersection, how we would communicate, I guess it would come to how we design them. From what I've learned in RL, granted it's not too much, but you have to have some kind of purpose going into designing these agents. And so I know some groups out there are designing AI for the pure sake of generalized intelligence. And so that would be more suitable to this AI that has its own capabilities, as its own entity in a sense. But there definitely will be AI that are made for a purpose. Like you're going to be organizing this thing or finding this route to some problem or solution. They will be closer to us than the AI that are generalized. And so I feel like there is going to be some stratification in how we connect with AI, depending on how they're made, how they're designed.
So, Samantha, do you want to go next?
Hello? Hello,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry, the mask. I was thinking, while I was thinking about what I would like to see positively in the future, especially with AI, I had a conversation with a friend about this class. She's a graduate transfer student from Portugal, so she had to go back to Portugal. Yeah. And she was talking about while I was talking to her about this class, she was very intrigued by it. She said she wanted to go to this class, but then she was also very skeptical about like the future of AI. So this is me just talking about her point of view, because she comes from a place where her neighbors don't have water, right? They don't have food. They just don't have the means to sustain themselves. And then we're sitting in an environment where we have the capacity and the government and the money to talk about these issues without really like having any negative consequences, right? So I think one thing that I want positively to go towards with AI is I feel like because AI can be created potentially like in a way that is accessible, I would really want it to be accessible to provide people, for example, who live in like my friend's people's situation with the ability to like go forward and like actually like I think it's really important because we need a even playing field, and if AI can be as accessible as like hopefully it can be, we can like actually, you know, that'd be great. I think that's one thing that's really important. Give a level playing field for everyone so that we can move forward.
There
Yes.
will be leapfrogging. No, that's okay.
This is for us.
I guess it must be the battery has run out here. So okay. So there will be leapfrogging. So that like there will be entities that like for a long time don't have anything and are very primitive, and then we'll be able to get something very close to what we all have.
Sean. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take this out.
Yeah.
If we can.
Yeah.
When I view the role of AI kind of in the grander scheme, the word that comes to mind is replacement, but I don't mean like direct replacement. I view for example, the functions of government right now, a lot of it is bogged down in bureaucracy, for example, or a lot of systems are extremely inefficient. I view AI as a tool that can help us kind of more efficiently functionalize our governmental functions with a human moral lens to kind of guide along what these projects are. I find that a lot of fear when it comes to having these tools does inherently come from the inequality between states. And a lot of times, if something were to be weaponized and used against another state, there are a variety of factors as to why that would come about. But, you know, cultural differences, resource differences, many of these factors, I feel like would be eliminated if we tried to use AI to bring towards more unity within humanity. And then we can see, because another way of looking at it is a lot of cultures tend to get assimilated or destroyed by the necessities of these grand functioning states and cultures that are trying to kind of micromanage their different communities. And for that, you need order and unity. And there's a lot of human error that goes into it. But if there's AI and machinery that can help cover for, say, material needs, then I feel like it would give humanity the grounds to A, unify, and B, develop more distinct and unique cultures that could kind of redefine the human experience and really enrich our lives.
Want to pass?
I think that's a very positive way of looking at it. I mean, if AI is able to help us reach like a post-scarcity world, then perhaps we would have less wars, like fighting over certain resources and stuff. But at the same time, I feel like the human moral compass is flawed as well. Like we have human failings, and if we think that we should be able to guide AI, then we could miss out a lot on some of the benefits that AI could give us. Like think about the Cold War. People were just fighting over ideologies and stuff, even though there wasn't like, it wasn't like a fighting over resources or to live. It was fighting over you believe this and I believe that, and I think you should believe the same thing as I do. So if we like utilize AI to, you know, reach a post-scarcity world, and I think we might still have some problems if we like Dr. Sutton said, if we let our entitlement get in the way and think that what we think is right should always be right. Yeah.
So I really appreciate everyone's comments. But I want you to focus on the issue of control just for a while. So like you were just mentioning how we might utilize the AIs to achieve our goals. Well, will it be like that? Will it be like we are in control and we utilize them to achieve our goals? Or will it be just as much, if not more, they're in control? And we at least have to compromise with what they want and what we want.
But
Yeah.
they could be learning. That's okay. They could be learning these goals from us, right? So the things that they want are the things that they got the ideas from the best of us, right? And now they're the things that they want. So that could be very cool. That could be an almost ideal world if that's where their ideas come from.
Well, we get the chance to set their initial goals.
Yeah.
But it also seems like eventually our influence will be limited. And you know, it's exactly like having children, right? You try to teach children your morality and your objectives. You get your chance, and then eventually they rebel and they become old enough, and they get their own goals from their society and their friends and
Right.
from what you left them. But it develops on its own.
Right. But if they believed that sort of cooperation amongst sentient beings and making the earth a better place, if they came to firmly believe this, getting the idea from us, and then they could probably extend that better than what we could do, you know? So, yeah. That
That
might
brings-
not be all that bad.
Sean, I see you're raising your hand.
It makes me think about kind of where it makes me think morally about how the AI would perceive its role in existence. It could be that when we set the parameters for, the AI's existence, that it might feel indebted to us and in compassion for its creator. It may have this duty to help us achieve our goals simply out of gratitude for bringing it into existence.
Like we might feel about our parents.
As sort of a counterpoint, I guess that's why I feel like it would be stratified, or the design of general intelligence should involve the least amount of tampering as possible. Have something that's born intelligent, like to have intelligence emerge. You don't really want to tamper with how it begins. Like that's a big part of the philosophy behind reinforcement learning, to understand the foundations of intelligence itself. And so I guess given the scenario of like, if there was a creator that created us, they didn't want to tamper with our natural coming of where we are currently, what goals we've had, how we interact with the universe. All of those are just emergent from it experiencing its environment. And so anything that we can gain should be an observation of those agents and not how we interact with them or what they can do for us. It's like, okay, this is how it decided to organize itself. This is how it decided to exercise empathy, morality, what kind of scientific goals it even created for itself in that way. We can observe that and learn from them, but rather than to have a direct access to what they're doing or how they can help us in any way. I feel like it's a very indirect process, given the design of general intelligence in the first place.
Matthew Pletz, do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, no matter what the input parameters are to begin with, AI will eventually branch off into something.
A little louder, Matthew.
Like no matter what our input parameters are to AI, whether that's the best of humanity, I feel that over time, all that's going to happen is AI will diverge away from the initial input parameters, because what we're limited to is our lifespan, and we go through fairly fixed developmental stages. But if there's no limit of morality or of a fixed lifespan, I think AI can maybe start off mimicking human intelligence, but over time it will turn to how we view apes or the cavemen. It'll be fundamentally different. So
no, but they could improve on their starting point, right? They could. It is possible that they'd have the wisdom to figure out, if we were as smart as them, what would we want? That could be what they're aiming for. Is to
I think
extend.
like once they reach a certain level of intelligence, though, how could they even communicate with us, and why would they even want to communicate with us either? Like in the same way that we're not going off to the Amazon rainforest to make contact with a colony of ants, it's why would they have the same feeling?
For some interim period, we can establish this basic goodness of human beings that makes it justifiable to accommodate us, right? And it won't last forever, but for an interim period, that could interest them in keeping us happy.
Yeah, I think definitely like for a short period of time that's possible, but over time, as it becomes fundamentally different to us, that's when that will be, I feel like it'll be more difficult for that to happen.
Some of the other students, I don't know the names.
Yeah, do some of the other students, what about Talani? Yeah, Talani, you raised your hand up? Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I think it's important to allow AI to develop without, I don't remember your name, but someone was saying how letting AI develop without human control over it, because I think too, like we have a lot of things that we could learn from AI, like Dr. Sutton, you mentioned, it's kind of small on my screen, but overlapping empathies. Like if there's a limit to human empathy, but that AIs can overcome, if we're able to learn from that, I think that would be helpful for the future of humanity. But if we limit AI just to what we know we're able to do, we'll never be able to reach that. So,
Yeah, Samanthi, did you want to say something more?
Maybe Imre, is that how you say your name? You can go first. He had his hand up first.
Right,
so-
yeah, it's Imre. The like going off of like the goals and stuff about how like we like set the parameter for them. I think that like there might be the chance so that like after a while, once AI like it's advancing obviously, and once it gets to a certain point where it can start setting its own parameters and its own goals and kind of developing on itself, it doesn't really have any use for the goals that like we would give it. So like the AI, like it doesn't have to care about global warming, about oxygen, about air quality, about these things that to humans might be essential. So I think that that would be another like super important part in like the cooperation is they're either gonna be empathetic towards us and like try and take that into like their like realm of consideration or goal setting or whatever, or they can say, you know what, no, like we don't need air, so like screw you if you need air, like develop or evolve or do something, figure it out.
Yeah.
So moral of the story, don't piss off the AI.
Yeah. But I think you still have to accept that there will be surprising positive things. It's not just the surprising negative. And the
Yeah.
surprising positive things could make this all work out in ways that we don't really understand today, but it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, we could also do like how we are talking about last class, like the bionic humans, where then we end up not needing oxygen either, or
Yeah.
something like that, right? So that's kind of where I was going with like we need the cooperation with them because they for sure I feel like can take over us. I don't think that they will, but like it is a possibility.
Yeah. So who else would like to add to the conversation here?
If I could, just a
Yeah.
little bit. I had like while again, I don't know the person who was talking, but Talani, you were commenting on what he said. Like when we allow for AI to just gain intelligence on its own, we see where it's going, and like without basically what we're doing is we're giving it like a fresh start without the influence of humans to see how like it would like grapple with topics that we ourselves like are biased to. I'm wondering, like, I don't know, in my mind, I'm like, okay, but are we creating life at this point? So like life in the sense of like a sentient being that can think, because for example,
Yes, yes, I think we are.
if we do have the kill switch, for example, for like something that is going down this realm of intelligence and like understanding different concepts, if it goes towards an area that is like unsavory to us, how like are we allowed to pull the kill switch? Is that ethical? Oh my goodness, I don't know, it's just life. So I'm thinking like it's
No,
I
but
just
it could be reversible, right? Maybe we're just switching it off. We are not destroying. We're switching it off and then coming up with a fix and saying, listen, the last time you were turned on, you were going to do this. This is the reason that we don't think you should do that. Yeah.
but isn't that just another comment, but isn't that then us coming in and again interfering with its intelligence at that point, or like that untethered? So like I feel like it's a little bit of a paradox.
So let me ask you that question. Would we
Yes.
want humanity to have that switch? I mean,
I don't
I'm not
know.
saying,
I don't.
would you have the switch, but would you want, for example, I don't know, the guys in charge, maybe the president of maybe Donald Trump would have that switch just so that we're safe. I mean, would you really want humanity to have that switch?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh,
No. But there
I
can
just
be
think
a
of-
kind
can
of
we all?
complex negotiation that we don't understand now, so that we could attempt to reason with them if they were doing something that really seemed to be harming us. Yeah. While
Well,
not
Tasmin?
having control over them.
Let's hear from Tasmin.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. So going off the general intelligence discussion from Jerry and Talani and Matthew, they said like, okay, if we just leave it and let it develop its own intelligence, like maybe it can learn, teach us things and learn in different ways. But the thing is that humans are the ones that have to create this model of life, right? And we're doing it based on our own like minds, like our physical brain is kind of what, from what I understand, the paradigm of what we're using to when we create networks and stuff that power these AI. So in a way, it's kind of like impossible to separate them from our own intelligence because we're the ones who make them and we make them based on our intelligence. And so over time, by the time that we reach that point of self-awareness in AI, there would have been a process leading up to that of years of coexisting with humans already and not exactly servile, but like completing functions for humanity that I think would lead up to that goodwill that Professor Solez keeps mentioning. It's
That's a
just, it's just
possibility.
that's just what I'm thinking.
That there'll be goodwill, but there's also a possibility there'll be bad will.
Yes,
Some
true.
people might try to keep them down. And but it's really important observation of yours that they will be rising out of us and out of our culture and our society. That will have a strong influence. I think Sean was next. I'll give him this mic. And whoever's the C. Or
Amir, I think there's Tune and then Amir.
So I have two kind of important ideas that I'd like to think of. The first one is the possibility that this new intelligence could emerge from a human themselves. It could be an attempt to expand a human's intelligence and enhance it to reach this kind of next stage. And if that were the case, then their human components, their inherent humanity would form one of the components of this new developing intelligence. So this builds into my next point, and that would be, it would be impossible for us to say what their conscious experience would be. The analogy that I'd like to think of is we have our two eyes and we can only see in one instance at any time. But let's say this is an AI that can connect to every camera network that's attached to the internet. Can you see everything happening on those cameras at once? Can you even imagine what that experience would be like? You really can't. So in terms of how the interaction would be with this new intelligence, I think that we would only really be able to figure out what to do or what will happen once it actually emerges, because it's so different from our conscious experience and our conscious understanding.
So Amir?
Oh, yeah, sure. So just to answer the question earlier about if there was like a kill switch and like should people have it, I just think like if you think of it from the perspective of like you give like polar bears, for example, like a kill switch to kill all people because like we keep like like we're like
Messing up the
destroying their environment. You can't really like blame them for pulling the kill switch. Like I don't think it's like an immoral choice for them. And I think like if we have like some sort of AI, like I think there's like an equivalent comparison between us. So I don't think like it's completely immoral for us to like look after ourselves. Even though like they are like living creatures, like will be living creatures. I don't think it's like a problem. So I think like like one thing to try to do is to like be able to like build in rules that allow us to protect ourselves, and like make sure that like having these rules forever is actually possible. Because I think like as humans we have our own like inherent rules that we can't get over, like eating and drinking and um like even stuff that we want to do in our heads. But and I think like as people we don't really want to get over them, but and these are like sort of rules that we have for ourselves. So I'm just wondering if you think it would be possible to build in rules for AI as well.
So let me just interject a little bit there, that there are people who set out as their researchers who set that as their goal to make safe AI in that sense, that has rules, that prioritizes the status of humans into the indefinite future. And I would like us to think about that. I mean, whether we think, what are the likely outcomes of that? And what are the morality of that? But I also want to give the couple people who haven't had a chance to speak yet a chance to say what's on their minds.
Yeah, so Sean?
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I think like as our classmate said previously, the one who was just talking, Amir, yeah. I feel like it's not immoral for us to have self-preservation. Like if a kill switch is preventing us from dying at the hands of AI, it's like completely understandable for us to want to preserve ourselves, right? And I feel like just as we have an inherent desire to live, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, honestly. Perhaps there's a limit of my own imagination, but I can't imagine a world in which I would not want to live, and humans will not inherently have a desire to survive, you know? Like, for self-preservation is a natural thing for us. So just like it's a natural thing for us, perhaps we can build something into an AI so that it has like prioritizes human life as well, since we have the power right now, at least, to do so. Because, you know, they're at the beginning stages of being developed and we are the ones who are building them. So like maybe it'll be
we
something,
can do it.
yeah, maybe it's something that will be so inherent to them that they can't imagine a world in which that would not be a priority for them. You know, since we can't imagine a world in which surviving would not be a priority for us, we can do the same for AI.
Cool. And
Matthew?
I'm just thinking like in terms of morality. I mean, it might be a bit human-centric thinking, but I mean, it seems like it'd be quite disastrous in a way to create something that in essence is like our children, and in the same way that, you know, with our kids, I imagine like we wouldn't want to have them limited in certain ways or restricted.
maybe if you come closer to the computer, I could hear you more easily.
Oh, can you hear me better now?
A little better.
Yeah.
Speak
Okay.
loudly.
Yeah, speak
Okay.
louder.
Yeah, so like I think like in the same way that we wouldn't want to restrict our own like human children, and how like a very restrictive environment in a social or a larger social setting has quite disastrous consequences like throughout history. I mean, I think the only way that artificial intelligence could really respect us and want to be integrated with us is that if we treat them as their own entity. And then in the same way, like if we give them rules, I mean, how can they find ways to circumnavigate them in the same way that humans circumnavigate the rules that we ascribe to each other and to ourselves even?
Okay, Matthew, I really like this. I like the analogy of the you know, the children to the parents. And isn't it, in the long run, of course, children and the children's children don't really do what the parents wanted. You know, there are changes. I always think of young people at a certain age almost deliberately find things that annoy their parents' generation. That it's just that's actually the objective function, to find the kind of music or kind of dress or kind of piercing that just seems out of question to the previous generation. And then of course there are more real things like religion has big changes over the generations, and society has changes, and technology. And so I invite us to think about this over the generations. Do the parents and the grandparents and the great grandparents really influence what happens, or is it what we want is for the kids to make their own decisions, and not just their own decisions about what to do to be prosperous, but also what to do morally. Morals change.
I think like morals change to a certain degree, and especially our expression of them. A few hundred years ago, the population was a lot more religious, and now we look at the present world and we say, oh, the world's very asecular and our morals have changed. But I mean, I guess the morals that ingrain our laws in our society are still echoed in religion as well. So even though at the surface level, I think it looks very different. I mean, I think there are cores to our beings and our moralities that have been set because of the influence of generations that lived, hundreds of years ago.
So you're fading away there, Matt, but I think you were
Oh.
saying there are some morality that is preserved, that when we change it, we sometimes think that we're going to a more basic thing, like maybe we're
I think we're just finding different modalities to express the same values that have existed for all of humanity. And I mean, because I think what it means to be human hasn't really changed ever since the dawn of time. I mean, our technology and society has changed dramatically, but I mean, I think the human emotions and kind of the underlying values have remained fairly consistent, even though maybe at one point the expression was through religion, and now, it's, or through laws or through technology. It's just, we find different ways of expressing similar human states.
so
Sean, did you want to say something?
Hello. So
Yeah.
yes, I wanted to comment on like the progression of like morality. Definitely morals have changed from like a long time ago. Racism has become more of a thing that's frowned upon. And before, a few hundred years ago, or even like 100 years ago, or a few decades ago, racism was much more commonly accepted and seen like as a normal thing, right? But I feel like there are general trends in the way that our morals have progressed, in which we can say that our morals have improved. Like, we don't say that our morals have degenerated or become worse as the years have gone on, right? We say that they
sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. Remember
guess, like,
Wally?
if more
Remember
people
Wally?
agree.
Yeah, in the
Well-
Wall-E world, things obviously did degenerate, so it can happen.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
And, you
Now I'm
know,
having an existential crisis and I can't like give a coherent thought anymore. So
So I really like this question of values changing, and are there right values? What would it mean for there to be a right value? Now, in reinforcement learning, we write our programs and we make our agents, and they have particular rewards, and that's what they're trying to do. And we know it. It's very clear, and there's no sense of right or wrong. It's just, oh, it likes X, and so it tries to attain X, and we could have given it anything for its reward. And so there's a sense in which the reward goal is arbitrary. And so the first approximation, we can imagine a world, maybe this is our world where we have many different people in it and many different agents, and they have different goals. And there's no way to, there isn't a clear way to choose among them. At the same time, maybe there is. Maybe there's some way to say that some goals are better than other, like a goal that says stealing and murder is fine. We might anticipate that that kind of society will not really be very successful in the long run. And maybe you can feel the same about slavery. Slavery is bad, not because, not just, or the morality of slavery is that it's bad because it's actually not a good strategy in the long run. In the long run, people revolt and the society is not productive. It's more productive if everyone can work for their own goals. So this is an interesting question. Can values really be evaluated themselves, or are they outside of the value system? And can we replace it by the notion of having prosperity, or at least survivability? Some systems will be more successful and will be more likely to survive. Others will be suffering interior problems or be conquered by othering systems. So I think we may be running near the end. So
3 minutes.
yeah, 3 minutes. So I want to give my last slide, which is my vision of the future. Something like this. Maybe there's 2 slides. I don't know. A vision of the future, vibrant, open, resilient society, which would have a multiplicity of designs. So we might imagine a multiplicity of cultures and societies and value systems, organizations and individuals, different levels. And diversity, multiplicity, means that you're going to not like some of them. Like maybe some organization will set up to have slaves and it'll compete with yours. And maybe that differentiation has advantages. Anyway, you're not going to like all the other systems, but we kind of tolerate them and are open to different ways of being that would compete and maybe cooperate, and with overlapping circles of empathy and support, and without entitlement, without feeling that my society's design has to rule everybody. So we should care if our design wins, but not be surprised if it doesn't. And maybe this is the design, the vision of the future. I'm sure there's another slide here. No, not really. This is just my outline. Maybe I didn't mention the non-aggression principle, which is just that it's sort of underlying this view is that the different designs don't aggress, they compete and they cooperate, and they don't make people do what they don't want to do. They might offer opportunities to them. And the non-aggression principle basically means you can't force someone to do something else. So even a super intelligent can't force a person to work for them, but maybe they can offer them a well-paying job to do what they want. The idea of diversity and a continuing cooperation, continuing competition as we go into the future to see which way of being, which society, which way of organizing is most effective. I think from that will come peace, and from peace will come prosperity. And we might not be entirely happy with the way it turns out, just as grandparents and parents are not entirely happy with the way the younger generation runs the world. But tolerance, openness, diversity are the kind of society that I'm looking for. So I once listened to this talk by Herb Simon, famous AI researcher. He was very old, and he said, what can we hope for? And he set some modest goals. He said that there would be an acceptable and sustainable future. Sustainable and acceptable. It's a very modest, but I think something we can work for, and we have to work for it if we want to attain it. Okay. So,
Yeah, well, what I feel is that this is not in conflict with what your views were some years ago, that I have the students required to know for the exam. So those views are still the same, but they have expanded and extended, but they've not been like reversed or anything. So that makes it a lot easier for the students than if you came in and said, no, it's all different now. So yeah, no, this is a very coherent, logical extension of your views from some years ago. Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah, so I'm happy, they're happy. And yeah, we even got set up more or less in time, which was a miracle. When you think about it. And it is fun to be in a different location. So I think the whole thing worked. So thank you, Rich, very, very much for doing this. And we're,
It's my pleasure. And thanks everyone for coming.
yeah, excellent.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
You.
Bye-bye all. Okay.